Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to Uganda.
Ooh, Uganda.
Yeah.
Mm.
To look at some big changes in their technical and vocational education and training, or TVET for short.
Right, TVET.
Yeah, and we've got a bunch of reports from The Independent about a new law that's changing things up,
Okay.
like streamlined systems, new institutions, and a ton of potential for Ugandans trying to build their
It's
skills.
interesting.
Yeah. So if you're interested in how education reform actually happens, or you're just fascinated by Uganda's development,
I know I am.
you're in the right place.
Yeah. And it's amazing how this new law is trying to make sense of what was a really fragmented system,
Hmm.
you know? It's like when you have a toolbox and everything's all jumbled up and you can never find the right tool.
Oh, a messy toolbox, huh? I get that.
Exactly. And that's kind of what Uganda's TVET system was like before this bill.
So what was so messy about the old system?
Well, TVET was kind of spread out across a bunch of different ministries and agencies,
Okay.
which led to a lot of overlap, and it wasn't efficient.
Right, right.
It was hard to manage.
Yeah.
So this new bill wants to bring everything under this one TVET council.
Ah, so like a one-stop shop for vocational training.
Yeah, precisely.
Makes sense. But I'm guessing a big change like that didn't just cruise through Parliament, right?
You're right about that.
There must have been some pushback.
There were some pretty intense debates about making these new agencies, especially the TVET Council and this thing called the Skills Development Fund.
Okay.
Some members of Parliament, like Asimwe and Opende,
Mm-hmm.
they were worried about adding more bureaucracy when the government's supposed to be simplifying things.
Yeah, I can see their point. Why create more layers when the goal is to simplify things?
Right.
What did the government have to say to that?
Well, Minister Mwingo and MP Twesigi, they were really behind this bill.
Okay.
They argued that TVT really needed its own dedicated body. They felt that just lumping it in with general higher education wouldn't give it the attention and the resources it really needs.
Interesting. So it wasn't a simple yes or no.
No, not at all.
There were some real disagreements about the best way to do this.
Exactly.
What happened in the end?
In the end, the bill did pass,
Okay.
but not without all these concerns being brought up.
Right.
So it's clear that people like Asimwe and Opendai, they really had an impact on the discussion.
Awesome. Now let's talk about this Skills Development Fund.
Yeah.
How are they planning to fund it?
So the funding is going to come from two main places.
Mm-hmm.
Parliament will give money directly,
Okay.
and then there's a 10% levy on the revenue of all the registered TVET providers,
Ooh.
and that goes straight into the fund.
Okay.
This money is specifically for those top priority training programs identified by the TVET Council.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
It makes you think, could this kind of dedicated funding work in other countries to boost vocational training?
It's a good question.
Yeah,
Definitely a model worth thinking about.
for sure.
Now, another big change from this bill is that it's merging a bunch of different assessment bodies.
Oh, okay. Which agencies are we talking about here?
There are two major ones.
Okay.
So on the healthcare side, you've got the Uganda Nurses and Midwives Examinations Board,
Mhm.
UNMEB for short.
Got it.
And that's merging with the Uganda Allied Health Examinations Board, or UAHB.
Okay.
And they're going to become the Uganda Health Professionals Assessment Board.
So they're putting all healthcare assessments together.
Right.
Got it. What about the other merger?
The other one's on the technical and vocational side. So
Okay.
the Uganda Business and Technical Examinations Board,
That's a mouthful.
yeah, that's UBT.
UBT. Okay.
And they're merging with the Directorate of Industrial Training, or DIT.
Mm-hmm.
Together, they're forming the Uganda Vocational and Technical Assessment Board.
Two mergers, streamlining the assessment process for healthcare and technical fields.
Yeah.
Seems efficient. But I'm curious, did everyone come out okay after these mergers?
Well, that's where things get interesting.
Ooh, tell me more.
So the bill specifically protects the staff from UBT. They guarantee they keep their jobs in the new structure.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no mention of the DIT staff.
Interesting.
Makes you wonder, were there some power struggles going on behind the scenes?
Yeah. Who came out on top and who lost out?
Definitely raises some questions about how these mergers really went down.
For sure. Now let's shift gears and zoom in on this new TVET Council.
Okay.
What kind of power will they have?
Well, they're going to have a big say in setting the standards for all TVET providers.
Okay.
Everything from what's taught to who can teach it.
Right.
They're also in charge of licensing trainers, accrediting programs, and then assessing and certifying the trainees.
Wow, so they're kind of like the quality control for the whole sector.
Exactly.
But didn't I read somewhere that local governments will also have a role?
Yeah, you're right.
Interesting. So there's a balance between central control and giving local authorities, some say.
Right, it's this interesting mix.
What kinds of things could be handled at the local level?
Well, things like licensing certain types of TVET providers, for example.
Okay.
That way, districts can tailor what they offer to what their communities and industries actually need.
That makes a lot of sense. But wouldn't that also mean that different regions might end up with different levels of TVET?
That's a valid concern, for sure.
Yeah.
If some local governments don't have the resources or the know-how to handle these new responsibilities,
Yeah.
then you could end up with a situation where the quality isn't consistent across the country.
So there's potential for both good and bad outcomes depending on how this local control thing plays out.
Exactly,
It's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
for sure. And then there's the last piece of this reform puzzle, the brand new educational pathway the bill creates.
Okay, I'm all ears. What does it look like?
Well, they've got this clear progression for learners.
Okay.
It starts with skills development centers for, the very basic skills training.
Okay.
Then you can move up to vocational training institutes,
Mm-hmm.
then technical colleges,
Yeah.
and then national polytechnics. Wow.
And at the very top, a national technical university.
So someone could start with basic training and potentially end up with a postgraduate degree, all within the TVET system.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
It makes vocational training a much more attractive option for young Ugandans
Yeah.
because it offers them a clear way to move up in their careers
Right.
and to keep learning throughout their lives.
It's a potential game changer.
It really is.
Wow. We've covered so much in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
From a messy system to this streamlined structure,
Yeah.
new ways to fund things, all these mergers, a powerful new council,
Mm-hmm.
and this balancing act between central and local control.
Right.
It's a huge undertaking with so many potential outcomes.
It is. And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to go even deeper into what this reform could mean.
Right.
We'll look at how it might affect Uganda's economy, its workforce,
Mhm.
and even the choices individuals make about their education and their careers.
Can't wait.
Stick with us. Okay, we're back. Ready to dig deeper into the potential impact of Uganda's TVET overhaul.
Absolutely. We've talked about the changes,
Right.
but the real question is, what does this actually mean for people,
For sure. For sure.
and for the economy as a whole?
Yeah. So let's start big picture, the economy.
Okay.
How might this TVET shift affect Uganda's economic development?
Well, you got to think,
Mhm.
Uganda, like a lot of developing countries,
Yeah,
needs skilled workers, right?
of course, of course.
To attract investment, increase productivity, and really drive economic growth.
Makes sense.
It's like if you're building a house,
Yeah,
you need the right materials,
right.
but you also need skilled people to actually build it.
True, true. But for a long time, it seems like TVET was kind of seen as the less desirable option.
Yeah.
Like the second best choice to a university education,
Exactly.
and maybe even a bit looked down on.
Right. And this reform is trying to change that
Good.
by creating that clear path to higher education,
Mm-hmm.
but within the TVET system.
So now, someone who chooses vocational training can see a way to get a diploma, a degree, even a postgraduate qualification.
Exactly. It's showing people that they can have a great career, even if they don't take that traditional university route.
And that could have a huge impact on the choices people make, on their aspirations.
Absolutely. Those individual choices then affect the whole workforce, you see.
Yeah, totally.
Imagine a Uganda with more skilled technicians, engineers, healthcare workers.
More entrepreneurs.
Exactly. That's how you get real economic growth.
It's about empowering people, giving them the skills to contribute.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
For sure. Now, let's focus on the workforce.
Okay.
One of the things Uganda's been struggling with is that mismatch. The
Right.
skills people have and the jobs that need filling.
Right. The classic square peg, round hole problem.
That's it. So how does this TVET reform fix that?
Good question.
Well, this is where the TVET Council's power really matters.
With the setting standards and accrediting programs.
Exactly. They need to make sure that what people are being trained for are the jobs that are actually out there.
So it's not just training more people, it's training them for the right jobs.
That's the key.
the jobs that are in demand.
If they get this right,
Mm-hmm.
Uganda could see less youth unemployment,
Yeah.
higher productivity,
Yeah.
and maybe even better wages.
Oh, wow. Because there's a bigger demand for these skilled workers.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential benefits for the economy, for the workforce.
Right.
But what about the individual person? How might this reform change the lives of actual young Ugandans?
Okay, so imagine you're young. in Uganda.
Okay.
Maybe you're really good with your hands, or you love figuring out how things work.
Or you're passionate about healthcare.
Yeah, yeah.
But university, it's just not for you.
Right.
Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe it doesn't feel like the right fit.
Exactly. And before, you might have felt stuck, like your options were limited.
But now, with this reform, there's a new path.
Right. You can go to a skills development center, learn a trade.
Get a job. And if you want, continue your education through the TVET system.
All the way to a postgraduate degree.
It's amazing. It's about giving people options, possibilities.
Absolutely. And breaking down those negative ideas people have about vocational training.
It's like saying, hey, you can be a plumber and an engineer.
Right. You could be a hairdresser and a business owner.
You don't need a university degree to have a successful career.
It's about recognizing all the different paths to success.
Exactly.
There's so many ways to build a good life.
Totally. We've been focusing on the positive side of this reform, but let's be real. No reform is perfect.
True.
What are some of the potential challenges?
Right. We got to think critically.
Yeah.
Because things might look great on paper, but the real test is when you actually try to put it into practice.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate for a minute.
Okay.
What could go wrong? What should people be looking out for?
Well, first off, money.
Right, of course.
They've got this skills development fund. But will it be enough?
Yeah, will there be enough to support all the new programs, the new institutions?
And will that money be distributed fairly, transparently? These are big questions.
Absolutely. You can have the best plan in the world, but if you can't pay for it, it's not going to work.
Exactly. And then there's the whole question of actually putting this plan into action.
Right.
You need qualified teachers and instructors.
You need to make sure the curriculum is up to date.
Exactly. Keeping up with new technology, that's vital.
Otherwise, you're teaching skills that are already outdated.
Another challenge is quality control.
Yeah, with so many new TVET providers popping up.
Right. How do you make sure they're all meeting the standards?
The TVET Council is going to have their work cut out for them.
For sure. They'll need to be strict about accreditation.
And enforcement.
And they need to be accountable, transparent.
Yeah, to build public trust in the system.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the potential for inequality.
Right, that some people might get left behind.
If some regions or groups don't have access to these new opportunities, the whole thing could backfire.
It could actually make things worse for those who are already disadvantaged.
Equity has to be a top priority.
For sure.
They need to make sure everyone can access TVET, no matter where they live, their background, their income.
It's a big task. There are definitely some hurdles, but it's important to remember this is a long-term thing.
Right.
It takes time to build a system that works, that's flexible, and really meets the needs of the people.
And it's a process that needs constant evaluation.
Yeah, what's working, what's not.
How can we improve things?
Exactly. Now, we've talked a lot.
We have.
But we want to hear from you, the listener.
What are your thoughts?
What stands out to you about Uganda's TVET overhaul?
What are you excited about? What worries you?
What questions do you have?
Share your thoughts on our website or on social media.
Join the conversation. We're back for the last part of our deep dive into Uganda's TVET transformation.
And it feels like we've just started to explore it, really.
Right. There's so much to talk about.
As we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to highlight one thing we haven't really gotten into yet.
Okay.
The potential for things to be different depending on which region you're in.
Like how this reform is implemented.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That whole thing about the minister having the power to give some of the TVET council's jobs to local governments.
That's it. It's easy to miss.
Yeah,
But it brings up some really interesting questions.
for sure.
Like, could this mean that TVET is totally different depending on where you live in Uganda?
I can see that happening, yeah.
Right. Imagine some districts really taking charge,
Yeah.
customizing their TVET program.
Yeah, to match what their industries need.
Exactly. Like a district with a lot of agriculture might focus on training in, like, modern farming techniques.
Right.
Or agricultural technology.
And another district that's big on tourism might invest in hospitality and language training.
Right. It could be a real hub for innovation,
Yeah.
you know?
Each region becomes like a testing ground,
Yeah.
trying out different ways of doing TVET.
What an exciting idea.
Oh, no! But of course, there's the flip side, too. What if some local governments aren't equipped to handle all this new responsibility?
Right. That's the risk with decentralization.
You could end up with quality and access being totally different in different places.
Exactly.
Some regions might thrive while others fall behind.
And that brings us right back to equity.
Yeah. Will your opportunities be determined by where you live?
That's the question.
These are things we got to keep in mind as this reform rolls out.
We need to see how it all actually plays out on the ground.
It really highlights the importance of good planning and keeping a close eye on things.
Absolutely.
The government needs to track how this decentralization is going. Yeah,
Identify any problems that come up and be ready to adjust things.
it's not a one-time fix, right?
It's an ongoing process.
This reform has to be constantly reviewed and improved.
Right, to make sure it's working for everyone.
It's amazing to think that we're seeing this huge shift happening right now,
Right in front of us.
a shift that could change things for generations of Ugandans.
And it reminds us that policies, they're not just ideas.
Yeah.
They have real effects on people's lives.
On their opportunities, their futures.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
we want to leave you with one last question to think about.
Okay.
What role can you play in shaping the future of education and skills development?
Whether it's in your own community or even on a global level.
We encourage you to stay curious,
Yeah.
keep asking questions,
Keep learning.
share your thoughts,
Yeah, and be part of the conversation.
because building a better future for everyone, it takes all of us being involved, being informed, and having the power to make a difference.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Uganda's TVET revolution.